Everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I welcome this important bill, and we've had a lot of comments today about the impact and the positive benefit that it's going to bring to consumers, and I'm going to talk about that shortly. But I recall when I was an even younger law student, studying the myriad of regulations and legislation that made up consumer protection. I can remember many a sober hour late into the night trying to get my head around a very complex area of law, which was of course beyond the reach of many lay people who wouldn't be able to devote the time that I as a student was able to, and it was beyond the reach occasionally, I suspect, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of me as a law student as well. So I think it is very welcome that we see in this Act a real and genuine attempt from the government to consolidate much of that regulation, much of that legislation, into a clear and straightforward bill, which will hopefully become a clear and straightforward Act, and will empower consumers and enable them to enforce the rights to which they are quite rightly entitled. So as a starting point, as a consolidation Act, and that is part of what this does, I think it is welcome. And if you compare it to other consolidation acts, recall again my days as a young law student, the Trade Union and Labour Relations Consolidation Act 1992, which is a monster of a bill because it tries to do so many things, a monster of an act, it tries to do so many things and to bring together so many pieces of legislation, and is so complex that it is itself very hard to decipher. Well, this is not. This is clear, this is straightforward. On the face of it, you know what it says, you know what it means, and you know what it means for your constituents and what it is going to mean for consumers in this country and our economy, and that is a positive benefit. It is also worth noting that the bill brings and updates our consumer law for the 21st century. Not my words, but those of the Chief Executive of Which, because it talks about protection for digital downloads and digital content. It is a glaring omission that our consumer regulations have not been able to successfully and adequately keep up with what is now such an important part of our economy. In 2012, over £1 billion was spent downloading digital content, and 16 million people, more than 16 million people who did that, had one problem of one sort or another with what they downloaded. That is not a good situation. But it is even worse when we have a regulatory framework that doesn't address it and doesn't directly give people the sorts of rights that they need to be protected in an increasingly important part of our economy. Of course, I give way to the honourable member.
I'm very grateful to the honourable member for giving way. Given what he's just said, I just wonder if he therefore welcomes the European Directive on Alternative Dispute Resolution.
I think the honourable member makes a good point. I actually do welcome that competition regulation is something that can be properly done across borders, across Europe, in a way that allows us to continue to trade together and to have a functioning free market within the European Union. So I do welcome the directive. I think it's something we, of course, can do ourselves and are doing ourselves, but that doesn't mean that I'm against it in principle. And I think it's an important point, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This is something that we can unite on across this House, because this is about getting the right deal for our constituents. This is about protecting people, some of whom, and we've heard discussion of constituency casework examples already today, are vulnerable, are pressured by unscrupulous sellers and need protection in the form of legislation. And others of whom, whilst they may not be vulnerable, find themselves through unfortunate circumstance with goods or services that do not meet the standards that they expect. And it is right that we have a clear and straightforward framework that offers them the protection that they should be able to expect to rely on. That is what this bill does, and that is what this bill extends to digital content, and I think it is incredibly welcome that it does so. So I don't intend to detain the House long, but I do think it is important that on behalf of law students across the country and consumers in our economy, that we recognise that this bill does a good thing. It simplifies and consolidates a very important area of law and regulation, and it will make life better for people who buy goods and services and rely on the functioning economy that lies behind the selling and providing of goods and services across this country. I welcome it. I hope it will gather support across the House, and I hope that it will be successful and become an Act.
Sheila Gill.
Thank you.